and the record. Hi everyone, welcome in. 안녕하세요, 헬렌 선생님. 성킴 선생님, 회장님, 켈렌 선생님 코호스트 만들어주세요.
네.
And Helen 선생님, can you check your Kakao?
Okay.
All right. Hello everyone, welcome in. This is our session 6 out of our 7. Penultimate already. Time flew. I'll be facilitating the session today. Hi everyone, I am Jini Shim. I am with this group. I've been helping with the behind the scenes kind of a thing with IKEN, which means International Korean Educators Network. I am the vice president. Ms. Sung Kim here is the president. We work a lot together on various things. I also am, not also, but my main thing is being a teacher for middle school students at the Fullerton School District. I teach Korean language. So if you are joining us for the first time today, or if you've been here many times, but you want to, again, tell us about yourselves, will you please write in the chat which school, what level of grade, maybe even what state, city you're hailing from today. But I think by now we are pretty familiar with a lot of us, each other. So today our session, we have Miss Helen Kang giving us a talk on K-pop. Sounds very exciting. And we have Dr. Fay Shin presenting the supplementary curriculum presentation. And then Dr. Jeff Kim also has some remarks for us, along with some links that he wants to share. And yesterday was Chuseok. Did anyone celebrate Chuseok by having some 송편? 전 만드셨어요? 네, so I hope everyone had a good Chuseok. And if you are a teacher in the classroom, I hope you had a fun day with the students. All right, and before we start our lectures, we have a very special person here today. Dr. Monica Ryoo is here to give us special greeting remarks. She is the chairperson of the Foundation for Korean Language and Culture, 한국어 진흥재단 in Korean. Will you please put your hands together, and then Dr. Ryoo, will you unmute and then say your greetings?
Good afternoon, everyone. And I am so honored to welcome you here. And you are the probably forerunners for this special aspect of teaching, ethnicity. And I looked at how many ethnicities do we have in the world? Do you know how many? 650 recognized ethnicity. And it's different from race, of course. And you know, and how many countries we have in the world? Recognizable 190 countries. And when you look at California, especially Los Angeles alone, there are about 17 ethnicities. So you guys have really a lot on your plate. And not only promoting Korean history, culture, language, ethnic special aspect of ethnicity and Korean American history. And you probably need to respect other ethnicity in your teaching curriculum. And probably you all do that anyway. So I welcome you all, and I really, really respect all of you as a forerunner teaching the future generation. They will be global when they grow up. Then they will love Korean. If they are Korean heritage students, they will love more. If they haven't, they learn more about it. And non-heritage students, by learning about ethnic aspect of Korean Americans and Korean language and culture and history, they will respect Korean and Korea. And so welcome you all. And I really, really thank you very much in doing so. And I would like to thank Consul Choi, especially in organizing all these things. Thank you so much. Any questions about me or anything, I will be happy to answer.
Yes, that is a good reminder. Throughout the session, as always, please feel free to pose any questions on the chat. I will keep an eye out and then ask throughout or bring up the questions throughout. And Dr. Ryoo, will you be staying for the rest of the session? We want to take a group photo after
Oh
Dr.
yeah, yes, I usually stay. I don't retain a lot, but I do try to learn.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Then let's take a group photo after Miss Helen Kang gives her talk.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. All right, we have okay, we just had some people just come in. Okay, thank you. All right, so without further ado, we have Miss Helen Kang. She's a teacher at the North Hollywood High School. She teaches Korean language and music, and she will be telling us about K-pop. Please help me welcome her. 안녕하세요.
안녕하세요. So, hello, people. First thing, like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing here. Meaning, I feel like if I have anything going for me, because I still consider myself relatively a newer teacher, and I feel like if I have anything going for myself, it's my energy. I'm a little kooky. Going through the pandemic, it's made me even more goofy. So I don't know, but go figure. So, so I was asked to write this, the K-pop portion of the model lessons. I think because it just kind of fell in my lap, because the other people that I feel was more qualified to do it, including you, Jini 선생님, just felt like, no, I don't want, like, and other people like, no, I don't want to do it. And I was asked to do it because one of the professors, Jennifer Jung Kim, her son was in one of my classes. And so in my classes, I'm really goofy. I get pretty silly. You have to bear with me because sometimes I'll jump around. So but so sometimes I need my like students help in getting me back to where we were, where we were started before I started chasing after squirrels. And then like I chased after that squirrel and I'm like, and I'm totally invested in it. And I look at something, I was like, squirrel, and I go chase after squirrel. But somehow I feel like I still get something done. So I think I'm like perfectly like in this space for teaching lots of squirrely high schoolers. So somehow, I guess maybe Miss Jung Kim, Dr. Jung Kim got like, heard from her son that like, oh yeah, Miss Kang, she's pretty upbeat. Like kids don't complain when they come in, they don't want to check out of my class. So that has kind of become like a double-edged sword, because in my school, I went thinking that I was going to be music teacher and Korean language teacher. Well, they have just been using me for a lot of convenience. For instance, like in high school, when kids go into ninth grade, they have to take 1 semester of health. So now it leaves the question of like, okay, where are we going to put these kids in one semester elective class? And so even from first year, they had me teach music class, Korean language class, and a handful of Korean culture classes. I'm like, what are Korean culture classes? They're like, oh, Miss Kang, it could be literally about anything you want. It could be about K-pop, it could be about Korean drama, it could be movies, you can do whatever you want. I'm like, wow, that sounds amazing. Well, I just realized I was just being used. They were like using me, just like using me. But after a while, I kind of like grasped it. I became to enjoy it. Because at first I was like, okay, well, I'm a music major, I'm a piano major, Okay, so you're telling me to show a lot of K-pop and like movies and stuff, and I felt like I'm luring them in with like candy, something that will cause like cavities and lots of calories with no benefits to the body, So I'm like, oh, whatever. All right, the kids want to, they want to watch K-pop. I'll show them K-pop. So I started showing them. I still remember one of my first 2 videos I started showing them was BTS, Fire, and then Dope. Okay, and then they really were fire. They really were dope. Oh my goodness, I got hooked on it. I first started showing it just because the kids wanted to see, and I feel like that's what they wanted. And I started listening to them like, whoa, this is really good. So even as a classical pianist, because classical musicians, we have this feeling like well, music, like K-pop, popular music, all you need is 4 chords and you can play like hundreds of music. There's not a lot of technicality or like brains involved. So, you know, there's a little kind of like this lofty, you know, thing that like classical, you know, musicians go through. And then so at first I'm like, well, they wanted me to teach it. I'll teach it, you know, exactly the way they told me to teach it. But it was, I completely had a change of my view and a change of my heart, because after I started teaching the Korean culture and conversation class, I remember walking down the hall and one of the students would came by and she's like, Miss Kang, 안녕하세요, 사랑해요. Like they start like throwing out all the phrases that I taught them. And I'm like, hi. And then she comes over and then she's like, Miss Kang, how are you? And Miss Kang, K-pop saved my life. I'm like, what, come again? K-pop saved my life. I'm like, what? And then so before I have a chance to ask her, you know, what do you mean by that? K-pop saved your life, you know? Like, and then before I had a chance to do that, she found another, a friend of hers down the hall, and then she goes, Miss Kang, I'll catch you again later, bye. And then she comes running off. So I'm like, okay, what does she mean by that? And at the same time, I was starting to learn more about BTS and this really cultish following of BTS and how they're all about loving yourself, mental health. And the real problem of teens today, who goes through a lot of emotional and anxiety, depression, and just going through all these, you know, teenage hormonal things, it's really tough for them at, you know, in this day and age right now. And you add pandemic to that. And you know, we all know, like even me, I had to really try to fight to hold on to my sanity during the pandemic, especially teaching a whole year and a half on Zoom, 2 whole screens of just black boxes and like looking at the names. And literally, I don't know how many times I had to hold back tears. I was near breaking down in tears because it was just so, I felt it was so inhumane. Like it was dehumanizing because I didn't know who was listening. I didn't even know if I'm thinking like, well, they probably like logged in and probably like just turned the volume all the way down and playing games or playing like, you know, what's that game that, you know, they try to find who's the, oh gosh, what is, okay, I'm sure you know, which one?
Is it Among Us or?
Yes, Among Us, because I played Among Us with my kids sometimes too in my advisory class. And the message that they give, BTS, including the speech that they made on UN, not the one that they just did a couple of days ago, but a year ago or 2 years ago, regarding like loving yourself. And you know, before you can love anybody else, you really have to accept yourself and love yourself. And I really was just amazed at, and I understood what that student meant when she said, K-pop saved my life, which is during their adolescence when there's going through a lot of emotional anxiety or just daily like depressions and stuff, and they don't have something to grab them and give them some type of a passion, something to draw a passion out of them. Well, K-pop became that passion for the kids, and they were forming groups, they were forming clubs, they were gathering, and they were turning on their own music and practicing dance moves, and they're meeting together, and and it was, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't be like, how could something like, you know, something that the older Koreans would consider like tantara, you know, like, like kind of like not serious music, actually have some good benefit. And these kids were happy. They had a focal point. They had friends that shared in their passions and in their interests. And for them to literally say K-pop saved my life, it meant that it gave them some like a new purpose and passion in their life. And there's also that in YouTube video, one of this person is like 60-some-year-old ex like military, like a high, like this woman who ranks high, and she goes around and she makes speeches. But she was interviewed in a YouTube video that says, parents, let your kids love BTS. And she talks about this, like a 10-15-minute video talking about how she discovered BTS and how she's just overall generally a much happier person. Okay, so, all right, so we all know the effects of the K-pop, that completely unexpected. So what I thought were like junk food, I feel like it's a wonderful, wonderful, maybe appetizer, just a little sweet, but appetizer. Bring them in, get them to sit down, and they're coming in with passion. And now they're so ready to open their ears and open their eyes and their hearts to take in the whole culture behind the whole K-pop and BTS and, you know, NCT and Twice and all of these wonderful, wonderful, you know, very, very good like musicians. And so I'm seriously wondering, wow, how long will it last? I feel like, you know, it's like everything that Korea does, I feel like it blows up in such a good way, you know, and I'm like, oh, it's just gonna be a matter of time before we get canceled. Like all the YouTubers that were famous, so they all get canceled, you know, they all thought they're gonna have this wonderful, you know, like career for life, and something that they did or said like 10 years ago it surfaces and all of a sudden they're done, you know. So I'm just like, okay, how long will this last? But in the meanwhile, you know, I'm just really rooting for them. I'm just hoping this continues because I really feel like it's done all kinds of good. So the K-pop, the lesson portion that I wrote, again, I really felt like there's so many more experienced and more people who could have done it, but it fell upon me. I did it. For me, giving the kids assignment, I felt like I should have done a little bit, kind of do a little like an example. Jini 선생님, do we have 2 minutes? Otherwise, I'll skip the, yeah.
We have 2 minutes.
Okay, all right. So I did my own little K-pop remake video, which is, you know, what I wrote a lesson on, because I felt like I should lead by example. Okay, so, and then so I just happened to be at that time be teaching an adult class of non-Korean people who, how do I get this smaller? Hold on, who were married to Korean people, and then so I had this. Hold on, I'm so sorry, let me. So I remade a Bororo video with my adult students, okay? And then so yesterday I had my 16-year-old daughter, what the? Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry, okay. I don't know if this is sharing. I'm so sorry, hold on.
And so if the video won't play today, we will be sure to share the link. If anyone else also already had like a K-pop lesson done in your classes, or you have some ideas, feel free to share in the chat too. I think that would be very useful.
All right, I'll just try one more. If not, it's okay. It's just an example of what I did, but only if time was good, but I don't think it's working now. So I can just go ahead and pass. It's okay. I'm so sorry about that.
That's okay. If there's a link, I'll ask you for the link later if we can share with the attendees. Maybe okay. Final remarks, or I am looking at the chat, no questions just yet. Even if anyone has questions after, you know, before we end, but just after this portion, please just feel free to chime in. So yeah, I'm sorry, Ms. Kang, we're gonna have to close. So maybe any final remarks before we go on to the next speaker?
No, none other than that. The kids just really are into it, and it just me watching them, they're just so lovable. I just love that they love my culture. Well, it's their culture. It's not so much mine anymore. It's their culture. So yeah, and I hope it continues.
All right, so thank you, Ms. Helen Kang, for sharing your experiences from actual what happened in the classroom and with your students. I think a lot of us probably are thinking of, you know, episodes or anecdotes that we've had. And so before we hear from Dr. Shin, can we, like we always do a group photo so we can remember who was here today? If you can, please have your cameras on, and then I will count to 3, and then maybe we can say, happy belated Chuseok, or BTS 사랑해요. All right, 1, 2, 3. 감사합니다. Thank you. And once again, I will be sharing with you any links that we missed and any further commentary from Helen, Miss Kang, for anything that she wants to tell us about. Okay, so next speaker, Dr. Fay Shin, will be talking about the supplementary curriculum presentation. So Dr. Fay Shin is currently a professor and chair at the in the Department of Teacher Education at Cal State Long Beach. She's a former elementary and middle school teacher and has published a curriculum program, articles, and a book in the areas of literacy, bilingual education, and English language development. We are very familiar with her. Dr. Shin, will you please begin with a round of applause?
Thank you very much, Jini. And just a little interesting, thank you, Ms. Kang, for your presentation. And I'm excited to share a little bit about K-pop. When I first saw this topic, you know, we had all these serious talks. I'm like, wow, K-pop. But you know what? If anything, it's so relevant. And let me give you just a quick little example. What happened when we, in our office, we have a student assistant, and she's Hispanic. And I was like, I was watching what she was saying. She's a work study student, and she's studying Korean. And I'm like, wow. I said, you're taking Korean language. And she's like, I love BTS and I'm learning Korean. She was in her second semester of Korean, and it was all, she's just crazy over BTS. And the professor who is teaching she's a chair in the Asian American Studies, where Korean languages, she said enrollment has been up, and she's like, thank you, BTS. And I thought it was so funny the way she had said this a couple of years ago. She really credits BTS for, you know, because the Korean languages, especially at the college, yeah, it was just very low, and all of a sudden it really burst. That being said, I want to share I will go through, it was fun doing a lot of research too. I have to tell you this, like, share sound, and I'm going to do that here. I want to make sure that you have this. Oops. Everybody can see my screen, yes?
Yeah, we can actually see your whole desktop, but
oh, you're seeing the desktop? Okay, so you need to see only this. It should be that. Okay, I see what happened. You didn't need to see. Okay, so now you have that. So, sorry. Okay, so there you go. So what I wanted to talk about was Korean popular culture in the United States, and a little bit about, you know, why it's important. Number one, here, you know what? We've got lesson planning. I think it should be. I wish I could mandate this, because the kids will love it. You've got the theme, you've got the disciplinary, the music, the dance, the media arts, language arts, Korean pop culture. Everything is there. So important. You can definitely attach it. Why teach about K-pop and Korean culture, popular culture? Number one, we need to reach our kids. You know, we've got our curriculum, and that's what we think is good for them, but how else do we connect? And if you talk, just listening to the research, the connection is definitely, that's what we need, the background. So start off by, what do the kids know? What do the kids want to know? If you say K-pop, they're going to start thinking, wow, this is not even related to school. Just like Ms. Kang said, it's just so, they're already into it. Literacy and technology, that's what kids are into today. And once again, social media, videos, BTS, K-pop really is related. And there's that tie-in, and this is what we need. What is pop culture today? How do students identify and connect with their own culture? Once again, we're talking about culture, we're talking about identity. This is for everybody. And that's why I say we need to connect. Also, pop culture, we need to connect it with history. Is it important? Yes. And a lot of us will identify with pop culture. When you think about, as you grew up, you think about certain things that you loved. That's part of history too. And so this is one of the things even before I talk about that, I also wanted to share with you just a little bit of my own experience. When you say pop culture, I think I may have shared this. I would advise, if whenever you get a chance, go to Korea, take your family to Korea today versus if you haven't gone recently. When I went a few years ago and took my girls, they were in high school at the time. Best thing ever, but they had a very positive, everybody thought they were the luckiest kids ever because they're friends. That's when K-pop, everything was about Korea. They were girls, so they were into the makeup and the fashion, but the K-pop. And I don't know if you've heard of, they're friends from even from up north. They heard about this place called 1 Million Dance Studio. I'm going to share that a little bit. We had an experience there, and where people from all over the world actually know about this studio in Korea. It's in Gangnam, and they actually went there and they had to make a reservation, and you pay for it, and they teach you like a 2-hour. They teach you how to dance. So that's just another experience. But the reason I'm talking about this is it's also important when you talk about language loss. I'll share how it's related. To give you a little background, I'm sharing a little bit of myself. My own dissertation when I was at USC was about what parent perceptions are on bilingual education. That's a whole nother area, but I really wanted to relate it to why this pop culture is so important. It has to do with self-esteem too. So for this lesson, what we did, I was just kind of supplementary with K-pop, but you'll learn about K-pop and Korean popular culture. And this unit provides students an opportunity to understand the impact of K-pop. Ms. Kang did a great job talking about the impact, and I think it goes beyond. If you ever find a few minutes, you'll get hooked on it. I immediately got hooked on just finding more and more about BTS, things that I didn't know. The lesson objectives are there. And the first thing I always say is, what is Korean American culture? And I would say, ask students to write down or say what Korean culture means to them. Think about it for you. If you were to have 5 or 6 words, for me, I think of Kpop, I think of Korean food. What can I say? Bibimbap. I also think about language. I think about, now the movies, Minari, Parasite, that's just a lot of different things. Korean the churches have a lot to do with it. So go ahead and put in the chat. I'm curious, what is it that you think of? And we'll kind of go back to that, because when you think about what is Korean culture, and I'm thinking more of the perspective here in the United States, a lot of people will say BTS, a lot of people will say K-pop, and depending on where you're at, but in LA, it's just the Koreatown, definitely. So think about that. And this is one thing I would say is, okay, this is once again, making that connection. And what do the students know, if at all, and what are their thoughts? So some essential questions, I put this up there. What is it about K-pop that has exploded in popularity across the globe? And these are the questions from Ms. Kang's lesson plan. What is or was your first impression of K-pop? Because not everybody may like it, but that's okay. Just, you'll talk about it. And what are some similarities and differences in Korean popular culture in comparison to American culture? So really interesting, and it has a lot to do with videos and dancing, I would say. And why is it important to understand popular culture around the world? Definitely something very important, once again, making that connection. I wanted to take some time, and it was kind of interesting what was said. Let me share with you. I hope I have a few minutes. I really, okay. Oops, a few minutes. Oh, okay. No, I don't have that one. That's okay. Sorry. So let's go back to that. Okay, I'm not going to do it. So what I had here was there, if you, I did Google BTS. There is this one clip that I wanted to show. Yeah, I could do it right here. So it's a Grammy Award. Well, this Grammy Awards was one, but the other one to show the popularity in this Jimmy Fallon show, they came there. And when they spoke, I thought it was so significant. And this is something that I would love to just show to all the students. When they came on the show, you just see how popular they are, not just among Koreans or Asians. It was just like, I was kind of blown away that, the girls screaming and all that. And when they were being interviewed, it was interesting. In 2018, Jimmy Fallon basically said, this is before they did their English music one. And he asked, and he even talked about how they got the award from the UN, talking about loving themselves. And I thought that was really interesting. And he said at the end of the interview, what is your wish, or what is something you would like? And they actually said, one of the guys said, they're pretty funny because their English is broken, but he said, going to the Grammys or winning a Grammy. And I don't know if everybody knows, in 2021, they were at the Grammy Awards. This is 3 years later, and they actually won that. And just to, whoops, Okay, wait, sorry about that. So control clip, just gonna give you a little taste. And you guys are all gonna go home, want to start watching a little bit of it. We'll see. I hope it's gonna play. Do you guys see it? At least going in circles?
Hmm.
'Cause I'm in this destination. So it's me break
Can everyone see it?
Hear it.
You can hear it, you don't see it. Oh, I see.
Let's rock and roll.
Okay.
King Kang, kick the drum, running on like a rolling stone. Sing song when I'm walking home, jump up to the top of the brown.
Okay, you guys can see this is the Grammys in case those of you who missed it. I would love to say this is homework, you guys. Just watch a little clips from them and
so let's go.
okay, wasn't that fun? Okay, whoops, sorry, let me go back to my screen. Share. Okay, so the next one, there's this YouTube from just do BTS and Jimmy Fallon show. It's really interesting, and he was there on they were there for James Corden, and I wanted to show that just to show the significance. This is American culture. This is, how they broke into the US market. Oops. Okay, there you go. So some supplementary activities, the background, lots of YouTube videos, documentaries are out there about K-pop, popular culture. And I really got into it, and I just thought it was fascinating. So I really hope that you get that chance to just kind of, learn about them. I talked about this now. When you say the activities, there's some that they can start to create their own dance music. This is not just fun, but it's physical education, it's dance. They will really get into it. There's something called the 1 Million Dance Studio. And what that is, if you go Google that, and what they did was they actually teach you how to dance. So this is where the kids were learning how to dance. Isn't that amazing? And one of the things that I saw was this group where they were teaching, and there's they have over 2 million followers. They had like 46 million views. This is a popular place in Gangnam, in Korea. I don't know if you guys did, anybody else here? My girls knew about this when we went to Korea. It's like they dragged us there for the whole day. They had to take the lesson. But what's amazing is the impact it has. And it's a lesson right there. Hey, let these people teach the kids this dance, and they're going to have so much fun. So having them, they will practice, they'll learn a dance, but then they can also create their own. Having them research about K-pop. If you tell your students, research about BTS, they are gonna love you. That is the best research paper they can do. But for me too, it was fascinating, but this is what you need to do. Once again, making that connection and hearing it was a plus, hearing how they're talking about loving themselves, about mental health. Bottom line is, can you give them a research paper to do on K-pop or on BTS? Let them, yes, definitely. You are going, like I said, students will love you. They're going to be even more. And that goes with, once again, connecting, not just reading and writing. You've got the dance part, but history. This is going to be, they are making history right now. If you see the records that they broke, giving examples of different forms of digital presentations, digital media, let them, they don't have to do a video of them dancing. Maybe they can create it. And I think Dr. Jeff Kim is going to talk about that. He's really good at that. His presentations are amazing. So please go forward with that. And it's just, once again, I want to kind of jump into, picture of Psy. We forgot about Psy. Remember Gangnam Style, everybody? Wasn't that the big thing? It's like, that's what everybody thought Koreans were at the time. This was way back then, but that started, and it was hilarious, but he broke records too. So that's another part of history. So you can talk about popular culture. A lot of people are really into the soap operas, the K-dramas. That's definitely there. And I want to talk also about how movies and media, do you know we broke records last year? Remember with Minari and Parasite? Remember the first? That was amazing. Those of you who watched it, wasn't that just heartwarming? But we talk about the impact the movies now have made on it. make this into a lesson again. Minari is a beautiful movie. It really, for a lot of us who came here, and it's like that was my parents' generation coming here. So you talk about immigration, but once again, it's through media, it's through the movies. And it was, I just would like to see it because, as you know, my background is also on literacy and reading and writing. You start to, you have to integrate it once again. So it's not just history, it's pop culture will go across the disciplines, across the different areas. So that was my part. I would show you a lot of different videos if I could, but no, wait, let's see now. How do I not? Oh, I just have to stop screen sharing, right?
Yeah, that might work. Stop screen sharing, and then when you do new share, be sure to choose the correct window.
Uh-oh.
And as a reminder, all the slides are, as always, available through first our website. That takes you to the Google folder.
Okay, so now we're done. Okay, so that was about it. Like I said, if I could, you guys would be watching like an hour's worth of different videos. I just discovered so many nice videos, clips. Any questions? And like I said, I went off of what Miss Kang talked about. It was great, her enthusiasm. And I will tell you that I just got just as enthusiastic. It was fun. It's pretty funny. I'm in my office here and people are thinking I'm just watching BTS videos. They can hear it. And, I start to watch all these different videos. Any questions or please check out Blue Bayou. Ooh, that sounds nice. Blue Bayou. Christine talks about that. Oh, it's a new song.
Movie.
Oh, okay. Check out Blue Bayou movie. Very good.
All right, maybe you need a moment to think about a question. Please feel free to chime in anytime in the chat. The
Okay.
chat, we have a lot of keywords and suggestions on what kind of links to look up for the video ideas. So thank you everyone for sharing.
Thank you.
All right, our next speaker is Dr. Jeff Kim, who you are also very familiar with. I will give an introduction of him and then we'll get started with Dr. Jeff Kim. He's been working in schools for the past 20 years and has served in many roles, including being an induction support provider, department chair, administration, instructional coach, and civic lead. He's currently teaching in the Anaheim Union High School District, and under his leadership, his school has earned the Civic Learning Award of Excellence. He also continues to serve as a part-time lecturer at Cal State Fullerton, where he's training up the next generation of educational leaders. He earned his educational doctorate in educational leadership at USC and is a national board certified teacher. Please help me welcome Dr. Jeff Kim.
Oh, thank you so much for that welcome, Miss Jini, and wow, Miss Kang, Dr. Fay, thank you so much for just introducing the K-pop lessons to us. Today, we're talking about classroom applications. Dr. Fay, you cracked me up playing BTS, and you were telling your colleagues probably, hey, I'm working, and they were like, but you really were. You were researching, doing research on the ethnic studies curriculum. That's awesome. We probably have the coolest ethnic studies curriculum out there. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing screen right now. Let's see if I can go ahead and minimize that just a little bit. All right. Make sure I'm on the right slides. What do you think, Jini? You think it's looking pretty good, pretty close?
Yeah, it looks good.
All right, very good. All right, well, once again, today we're talking about classroom applications. I guess this would be kind of like part 2 or part 3 of today. Always, I encourage folks to begin with their why, because I think it's important for students to know their story, be able to tell their story, listen to the stories of others with empathy and respect, and also do something good with their story. So I think these questions are important then. Why is it important for students to know their story? Why is it important for students to tell their story? Why is it important for students to listen to each other's stories with empathy and respect? And why is it important to do something good with your story? Because this is what's going to drive us to really sometimes we hear a great lesson and then we don't implement, right? But if you know your why of why this is so important, one of these ethnic studies model curriculum lessons, you'll definitely be implementing. And I'll be sharing a couple of different ideas today. First, this is a simple one. This is what I begin with at the beginning of the school year. And where might Korean American stories begin? It might begin with the very beginning. I know many of our schools are encouraging community building. And so students just talk about 10 things about themselves, right? And so here's an example of that where they share about their families, their hobbies, their accomplishments. Very easy. And then students introduce themselves to one another, and then you know what the students know about themselves. Then you go in a little deeper. And by the way, I have YouTube video clips on all these different approaches and strategies. And in this one, you can see how do we tell our story through photos. This is the photo voice lesson that I had a chance to be a part of. Voice stands for Visualizing Our Identities and Cultures for Empowerment. It was created by a team of UCI educators. And it's an opportunity for students to take pictures of things that are important to them, and then using social media for social good. It could also connect with civic engagement as well, outside of Korean American ethnic studies. But anyways, I was attending a workshop this past summer. Miss Sung Kim, Jini, Miss Jini, they were leading this workshop, right? This Korean American seminar in the summer, I highly recommend. Anyways, I learned about for the first time this place called the Bell of Friendship. I never heard about that before, but then it was at that workshop, I heard about it. And then I said, I'm going there. I'm going to that place. And I'm taking my mom. Because my mom didn't know about this place either, by the way. So we went there. And then I'm gonna just give my showed analysis of this. I posted a picture of us, my two younger daughters. And then also this is the showed analysis. So S stands for, what did I see? A picture of my mother and two of my daughters in front of the Bell of Friendship in San Pedro, California. H, what is happening? We are visiting the Bell of Friendship, a gift given by the Republic of Korea to the United States in 1976 on the bicentennial of the US independence, a gesture of friendship between the United States and the Republic of Korea. So similar to the Statue of Liberty by France, right? Oh, this relates to my life because I'm reminded of how little I've learned about my Korean American story and how that has made it harder for me to know my own story of generational resilience. I learned about this workshop once again in 2021. This is happening because I came here wanting to thank my mother for her migration story to the United States and her resilience to coming to this new country and her courage to make it at home. So at that location, I told my mom, thank you. I said thank you to her. I don't know if she completely understand where I was going with all this, but I was able to let her know, hey, thank you so much. Thank you so much. With my daughters, right? They're also listening to me share why this place has some significance. And then E, this can educate others by understanding that many people have a migration story and see it as a story of resilience. Sometimes because the migration story is so difficult for many folks, the transition, the work hours, the pain, right? They don't talk about their story. They don't want to talk about it, right? So a lot of children, they don't know their parents' story, and they don't see their parents' story as a story of generational resilience, a story of strength. Korea's story is a great story of strength, a story of survival, a story of democracy, a story of identities, a story worth looking at closely. But if you don't ask, you're not going to know anything, right? And then D, what are we going to do about this? Give others the opportunity to discover and share their migration and generational story with empathy and respect. So this is mine. The teacher must model this vulnerability. So if you're asking students, hey, share your most vulnerable story, they're not going to. The teacher has to be the one to say, hey, I'm going to model it for you guys. I'm going to share a little bit about my own story. And then the students are going to start sharing their story. Now, this is a little hard for me because I'm not that type of person, but I'm really trying because I think for our students, they're worth it. And I want them to be able to discover their own story of resilience as well. Now, this is going to lead into, so you got the my story in the beginning. They could tell, oh, wow, my teacher wants to know about me, right? Then they got the photo voice. We're getting a little understanding each other a little bit better. We're starting to understand what we care about, right? And then now moving into the ethnography, where it goes a little bit even deeper. And here's some questions that I have to kind of encourage thought. By the way, I'm actually implementing this right now with my 10th graders, although I did it with my 7th graders as well. And it's a cross-curricular. So I'm partnering with the English department. So rather than giving English assignment and also history assignment, it's just together. We're just giving it together. Also, science is going to be involved because they're going to talk about the story behind ethnic food and calories. PE is going to be involved. They're going to talk about the journey of resilience. So they're going to have some exercise opportunities. And I told them, hey, why don't you have them talk to their family about, their culture? That'd be a part of the PE homework. So you see how this is a cross-curricular activity that we can do. But if I just wanted to do it in my history class, I've done it before, and it could be done solo by myself. But I think there's some power in doing this together with others. So I know Miss Kang, Dr. Fay, they're talking about K-pop. This is actually what one student shared with me when she did this. She said, one of the things my home culture brings to America is K-pop. Not exactly value, but brought respect and got noticed for this. I remember when I was a younger girl, this girl asked me where I was from, and I said South Korea. She laughed and said, "So you come from nowhere?" And she didn't know where it was. But 6 years later, she became a fan of K-pop and claimed she now loved Korea. Wow, right? So this K-pop, Korean food, K-drama, this is a nice entry point for more, right? So I'm just going to read some. I'm not going to read all these, but I'm going to just read some of these. What does your name mean? A lot of students, they don't know the story behind how they were named. They never ask their family. And especially with Korean families and other families where there could be a language issue, a language barrier, definitely even more so, right? So in addition to other barriers, there's the potential for language barriers. So a lot of communication might not be happening. They might never ask their parents, what does my name mean? Or how was I named? Tracing their family tree. Looking at this, slide 4. What would you say are some of the differences and similarities between your generation and your parents' generation? Maybe you never have thought about that. And then the similarities, of course, right? Let's see, an oral history with at least one person in the family. A lot of my students will say like, oh, but my parents speak a different language. They speak Mexican, they speak Spanish, or they speak Korean. Oftentimes they'll say that as though they're apologizing. And then I tell them, oh my goodness, that's wonderful. That's like a heritage language. Now you get to know 2 languages. This is going to be your blessing. And if you know that second language, wow, that's such a blessing for your future. I definitely would want to hear it in a different language, actually. So encouraging them to do that. Sharing how your family has made America a better place. A lot of times when we think about ethnic studies, we're thinking about someplace far away, but no, how does that apply to America? How does that apply? How does the home culture add value to America? E pluribus unum, that's what's on the dollar bill, from many, one country. So how, I mean, if I were to say, hey, when we think about democracy, did Montesquieu from France, did he benefit the Great Britain, John Locke? A lot of people would say from Europe, a lot of these places have benefited, shaped America in a good way. What about if I say Korea or China or Japan or any of these places? I don't think people know the benefit of this home culture benefiting America. So it's something we're thinking about. How about them being bicultural or multicultural as a strength for their future? Do they realize, do they understand that when they're bicultural, do you see like Miss Jini going back and forth, Korean, English, back and forth? I'm so like envious. She's so good at that, right? That's a strength for her. That's an opportunity, right? And I hope all our students realize like that's kind of a great opportunity for them. And of course, there's more. I'll tell you this, there's this researcher, Professor Gloria Ladson Billings, and she talks about in her article, Culturally Relevant Pedagogy, this idea of cultural competence. And what that means is it's helping students to appreciate and celebrate their cultural of origin, their own, but also at least one other culture. So when you're having these sharings in class, which probably includes students that are not Korean American as well, that's great because Korean Americans are having a chance to listen to others and others are having a chance to listen to Korean Americans, and that builds cultural competence. This is a good thing, especially for one of the most diverse countries in the world. We're so blessed to be so culturally diverse, but we want to make sure that's a blessing by understanding and seeing the strengths in each of these cultures and talking about other cultures in a culturally honoring way. And then this is to go dive in deeper. This is what I created in conjunction with the Cal State Fullerton, Cal State Long Beach team over the summer when we were looking at the model ethnic studies curriculum. How can we create these lessons to support the model ethnic studies, the lessons that are in there? What can we do to support this? This is the one that came to my mind. The virtual Korean American Museum. So I asked the driving question, how will we create a virtual exhibit at the Smithsonian to tell the story of Korean Americans that culturally honors the contributions of Korean Americans to the United States of America? But because I'll tell you this, if I ask anyone, give me the name of one Korean American that has impacted the United States historically. If you did not attend this Korean Institute, like right here, I think they would struggle. I think most Americans in the United States would struggle with answering, couldn't even name one, right? So I think this kind of place is very important, virtual Korean American Museum. So you can see here, what are we gonna do? You're gonna love this because it combines all the ethnic studies curriculum lessons that we've been talking about from the first one to the second one, third one, fourth one, fifth one, all the way to the K-pop. It's including everything. So each team is divided up, right? And so it's kind of like a jigsaw approach, many teams becoming an expert on one part, and then they become docents. docents is a fancy word for like an expert or someone who's like a expert helping guide others through the museum. And so what would Team 1 do? I think Team 1 can begin with medieval and modern Korea, right? That's what Team 1 can do, because I think we don't want to miss out on the 5,000 years of great Korean history that also is a part of Korean American history, if we know about it, right? Team 2, Korean American timeline, using the quick facts. So when did the first Korean Americans come? Like a timeline, a visual timeline, that's in the ethnic studies curriculum. That's in the lesson plans that have been provided. Team 3, early Korean immigration in the 1900s, right? This was a lesson that we shared when we talk about Dosan Anchangho and Pachapa camp, right? If you would have asked me like a year ago, what is all that? Dosan Anchangho, Sammy Lee, Colonel Young Kim, I would not even know. I would not even know. But it's all in the ethnic studies curriculum, right? Section 4 could be particularly on Dosan Anchangho. Team 5 could focus on the Korean independence. We just did that lesson in the previous weeks, right? I think team number 6 could work on the Korean American church. I think it's very difficult to know the Korean American story without understanding a little bit about the Korean American church. So that could go back to Dosan Anchang-o's lesson as well. Team number 7, Colonel Young Kim, they focus in on that. So can you imagine them creating this exhibit where they're talking through all these things, right? And they're going to be the experts to explain it to one another. And that's how the class is going to learn about all these different parts. So even if the teacher, like, I don't know about you, but I don't know all these topics, right? But this is the way for students to become the experts, and then they share what they know with one another. So the teacher doesn't have to be an expert of every single topic. You don't have to stress yourself out because all the lessons are already there. You just direct them to the lesson, the videos, you tell them which video to watch. They will get the information and then they can create their exhibit, right? You don't have to be the expert. Team number 8, Dr. Sammy Lee. Team number 9, the Korean War, right? And its impact today. Team number 10, the Immigration Act of 1965. This explains a lot about the immigration pattern today. Team number 11, Korean American ethnic experience and interethnic relations. This is the first one that we did with Dr. Grace Cho, if you remember. So we got those 11 exhibits, right? But then each person also does this. This is part 2. Important Korean Americans or Asian American historical figures. Every team will choose at least one Asian American or Korean American that has made an impact, and then that's a separate part of the exhibit. That's a separate part of the museum, right? Everyone does this. And then part 3 is the Korean American story of resilience, where each student has the opportunity to reflect how the Korean American story of resilience strengthens their own story of resilience. See, when we hear about the Korean American story, this isn't just, oh, if you're Korean American, this is helping you. Of course it will help them too. But if I was a different culture, different background, and I heard about some of these stories that we've learned about, Dr. Sammy Lee, Dosan Anchang-ho, Colonel Young Kim, if I heard these stories, I would have a greater love for America, because these are Korean Americans we're talking about, right? And a greater respect for Korea as well. So this, even if you're doing the Korean American Museum, it doesn't mean it has to be a special Korean American class, because it has applications outside of Korean America as well. So if you want a little bit, I know we're getting close on time, if you want a little bit more detailed information on each of those different pieces I talked about, I created a YouTube video clip on each of those sections. So you'll be able to access that if you want to. The YouTube page is called EdFamily, because we're all one family sharing our resources one another. That's the link I just posted in the public chat. I have a playlist on Korean American stories. I also have a playlist on ethnography and ethnic studies, because there's a lot of change happening. And then also, you know, for new teachers, classroom management, I have some work on classroom management. And lastly, civic engagement and learning. A lot of the work that I just talked about and more, we're actually presenting in partnership with Orange County Department of Education at the OC Civic Learning Institute. So this is going countywide. What we're doing in Anaheim is going countywide. So this is good work that, you know, is happening. So I think with that, I'll just hand it back to you, Miss Jini. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much. If you have any questions, chat, I'm taking a look. No questions, but just comments. So Dr. Jeff Kim, please take a look as well, so you don't miss any comments that if you want to have a reply on it. Yeah, thank you. And thank you for the Paksu icon, round of applause. Lots of good information, and the links that he shared. I will, as a reminder, like organize all the links that have been shared in the chat and then send it to you again afterwards. The videos of the webinars have been uploaded now. You should be able to access them through the YouTube channel, and the YouTube channel link is on our website. All right, so we have about 3 minutes left. I will go ahead and share the evaluation link in the chat.
Just comment. Yes, this is Hyung Choi as a consul of Consulate General in LA. And I'd like to thank you, all of you, for providing and participating in this wonderful webinar. And I want to say that today's topic is really significant. Yes, all the 7 topics are really meaningful, but the K-pop is not the story in the past. It is something about what is going on right now. I think, yeah, as you know, Korea has achieved economic development, and now it is also recognized culturally. So, as you know, Minari and Kiseungchung. So I think that it is important to teach students about Korea, not only in the past, but something in the present. So I hope that we can develop more lesson plans focused on something about present. So if you have any topics in your mind, yes, please let me know. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that reminder. So the evaluation can be a good place if you want to share your input with us. There's always the section about your ideas on how to implement what you learned today in your classrooms. So thank you. The evaluation link has been shared in the chat. Any final thoughts from any of the speakers from today? Okay. Well, next week is our last session, right? Yeah. So we look forward to having you back. I actually think that we had less attendees today. I think we should have these attendees receive some kind of award for attending every week, because it's so hard to do, right? So thank you for coming back to see us. And yeah, I think that's all we have. Thank you, everyone. All right. Recording stoppages now.